Well, look, thanks, Stephen, for inviting me along. I didn't get given a brief, so you get what you get here. But I'm going to take a lead off what Toby said. Toby, I think statistics are really boring, but that was really good. Thank you very much. And I want to pick up on one thing you said. I like to make things better. Yeah, so we'll come back to that. So my name's Keith McNeil, for those of you who don't know me. I've just recently been appointed as, Tina, what have I been appointed as? Commissioner of the Commission for Excellence and Innovation in Healthcare. And we'll come back to those two terms, excellence and innovation, a bit later. And Stephen asked me just to give you a brief overview of my career path, which, unlike Toby's lovely linear progression, has been, for those of you who know about psychosis, a very knight's move in the way I've pursued my career. I want to start off by asking you a question. Oh, first of all, who are medical students here? Oh, fantastic. Junior doctors? And then the rest of us are old guys, yeah? So, did you know that you cannot tickle yourself? Do we all know that? Does anybody know why? It's the same reason why if you rip a Band-Aid off yourself, it hurts less than if someone does it to you. It's the same reason that if you ever have the delightful experience of having to suture yourself without anaesthetic, it hurts less if you do it to yourself than if you let someone else do it to you. Does anybody know why? Well, when you use your fine motor skills, there are inhibitory pathways activated through the cerebellum that reduce pain sensation. So just remember that when you do things like that to yourself, it hurts less. So my life started out wanting to do marine biology. I did my final year of high school at Cairns, at Cairns State High, and I think I'm the only male member of my class that hasn't been to jail. That was way back in 1974, which tells you how old I am. And I went to see a guidance counsellor. We used to have these people called guidance counsellor who would give you career advice. And he said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to be a marine biologist." And he said, "Let me guess. You live in Cairns, you want to go and dive on the reef and work with coral and stuff." I said, yeah. He said, "Forget it. You'll end up working for CSIRO studying orange roughy off the coast of Tasmania. Do medicine, because you got good marks." So I said, "All right, I'll do medicine." So I did medicine. Literally, I did medicine. As I went through medicine, you know, as you do, as you get experience, you get to see things that you like, and you start formulating in your mind, where do you want to go? And I got to go, I did my internship in Brisbane, and I thought I wanted to be a paediatrician until I did paediatrics, and I found that I really disliked parents. And so I couldn't decide what to do, so I did the next most logical thing. I joined the army. I had been in the Army Reserve, so that was natural. So I joined the Army and went and was an infantry RMO and got drafted into the Special Forces and became a fully trained Special Forces sniper as one of my unique skill sets. I was actually sitting on a rock in New Guinea beside a river whilst we were on exercise up there. I'm allowed to say we were on exercise. And it came to me that I couldn't run around like playing Boy Scouts for the rest of my life. I needed to do something, and so I decided I would go back to, I'd leave the army and I'd go and do physician training, which I duly did. I went back to Brisbane, used army contacts actually to get a job as a registrar, and did that, and found that I liked respiratory medicine. So I gravitated in that and did my specialty training in respiratory medicine. But I got a bit bored with coughs and emphysema and lung cancer and stuff, so I was fortunate enough at the time, Queensland had wanted to set up a lung transplant program. So I went overseas to Cambridge to learn about lung transplants and came back and started the lung transplant program in Queensland. That's where Jerry and I met up in the transplant world. And then after a couple of years doing that, I got drafted back to the NHS to help run the program at Papworth, which is one of the busiest heart and lung transplant units in the world. And I ended up also not only doing lung transplants, but also running a heart failure service. Because that was at the early days when we were doing ventricular assist device therapy with these huge whacking great pumps that used to sit outside on people's tummies. Now they're little tiny impeller things that you can put in percutaneously. So the world's changed. I think I'm going to be having some conversations with people at Karl about impeller therapy at some stage in the not too far distant future, but that's for another day. So I did lung transplantation, and also because of, at the time, pulmonary vascular disease, I did that for a few years, then came back to Queensland again and did the same thing. But life is interesting. Fortune favours the prepared mind, as they say. So life is interesting, and an opportunity came up for various reasons to become a hospital CEO in Brisbane. And so I took that opportunity and became the hospital CEO of the Royal Brisbane Hospital, which is about the same size as Royal Adelaide, the same sort of ilk as Royal Adelaide, big tertiary teaching hospital in Brisbane. And I said I'd do that for a year. And at the end of that year, the national reform came in and local health networks came to being. And the Brisbane Local Health Network, or what we call a hospital and health service, came into being. And I was asked to run that. So that was like a $2.5 billion budget, 13,000 people, 5 hospitals, 2 of whom I'd already worked with, the Royal Brisbane and Prince Charles, where we did the transplant stuff. And I was still doing clinical medicine through all this. And it was important to me for my identity that I kept doing clinical medicine. I kidded myself that, gave me kudos when I was talking to people on the wards and whatnot, but actually it was part of my identity. Being a doctor was part of my identity. It was hard to let go. Whilst I was doing that, I then got a phone call one night and someone said, we'd really like you to come over to Cambridge and run the hospital in Cambridge University Hospital. And I got to thinking about that, and of course it took me about 10 seconds to say, yeah, sure, I'll do that. So we relocated back to Cambridge, where I went for 3 years. It was part of an extraordinary experience there, working with one of, I'll say, the premier academic university in the world at the time. 65 Nobel Prize winners, 45 in health and science, 14 working at the campus at the time. One of whom was a patient of mine in the olden days, a guy called Cesar Milstein. Anybody heard of Cesar Milstein? You probably might recognise his what he won the Nobel Prize for, which is the discovery of monoclonal antibodies. So that was the kind of environment that we were working in there, and it was fantastic, and the biotech economy. Anyway, things didn't work out for me too well in Cambridge. So here's a lesson. I was being asked increasingly to compromise what I thought was compromised patient care on the basis of achieving corporate targets. And I refused to do that, and I resigned. Best job I've ever had. But do I miss that every day? Do I regret the decision? Absolutely not. Because I can tell you, here's a lesson for you. Never compromise your values. If you compromise your values, that will stick with you the rest of your life. Hold true to them, draw a line in the sand, and never cross it. Because when you do, I can tell you, it haunts you for the rest of your life. Anyway, that was a good decision for me. They forgave me for whatever I'd done in Cambridge, and you always learn more from the scars in your back than you do from the medals on your chest. And curiously, about 6 months later, I was appointed as the National Head of IT for NHS and their first Chief Clinical Information Officer, which was saying something for somebody who knew absolutely nothing about IT. But one thing I did know about was it's not about technology, it's about people. We are in a people business. Everything we do is about people, yeah? And you always have to remember that. The technology is the easy side. Anyway, I came back to Brisbane, spent the last 5 years, first couple of years doing the IT again in Queensland, and then got drafted into, like everybody, the COVID environment, where I ended up running a few things for Queensland Health before leaving that contract after 5 years and then being enticed to come down here to the Commission. So you can see my career has taken some interesting twists and turns. I've always taken the approach that I'd rather try something and fail at it than to live with the regret of what if only I'd tried that, what might have happened. That's just me, and you have to go through, as you go through, you'll figure out what works for you. I don't like not having an opportunity, even if it means failing at something. Yep. So, and you'll come to those sorts of things and those sorts of points in your life, the road less travelled, so to speak. So the Commission gives a real opportunity for excellence and innovation. And key to all of this is leadership. Now, you are the young leaders of the future. Make no mistake about it, you will be put into leadership positions as you go through the system. And you need to step up into those positions. It's really important for us as a system to have you engaged in that profile. I can tell you without fear of being wrong that when I, as a CEO or as whatever I've run nationally, when I've had good clinical leadership, when I've had really good clinical leaders, you don't have any problems. Things just work. Quality's good, safety's good, budgets are usually okay, targets are usually hit. Where you don't have good leadership, you spend 80% of your time dealing with 20% of the problems. Yeah? And so clinical leadership to me is the absolute bedrock of our health system's sustainability and effectiveness as we move forward. The innovation side of things is mission critical for us as well. There's a couple of things that I say to people. Well, every system is perfectly designed to deliver the outcome it delivers. That's an old business paradigm from a guy called Edmonds Denning. And it's very true. So right now across our systems, we deliver only 60% of the care according to evidence base and best practice. 30% of it is waste and 10% causes harm. Now, that's not excellence to my mind, that's mediocrity. And we've got to do better than that. It's really hard though, with the way our system's currently constructed to do that. We need to disrupt it, we need it to be transformational. We need to think differently. Albert Einstein, there's two quotes from Albert Einstein that I love to share with people. You can never solve a problem with the mindset that created it in the first place. And my favourite one is, actually this, I'll tell you my favourite Einstein quote in a minute. But the other one in this regard is, he who marches with the rank and file has been given a large brain by mistake, because for him the spinal cord would suffice. Yep. So we've got to use our brains to think differently, not just reflexly do what we always did. The status quo is a deliberate choice. It's not a default that you just end up in. We deliberately choose to stay in the status quo, and we can deliberately choose to move out of it. But we do have to exercise our brain and our thinking to do that. My favourite Einstein quote, which is completely off topic here, is that any man who can drive safely while kissing a pretty girl is simply not giving the kiss the attention it deserves. So how does this translate back into why can't you tickle yourself and clinical leadership? Anybody see the parallel? Well, the parallel is, and we live and breathe this every day, if you step up into clinical leadership positions and you do it, it'll hurt much less than if you leave the door open for someone to come in and do it to you. Yep. So please all step up and take on that challenge. Thanks.